And we're reporting tonight that leaders from major European powers have rallied behind Greenland, insisting that the Arctic island belongs to its people. It follows renewed threats from US President Donald Trump to take over the Danish territory, claiming that it is vital for American national security, with the Prime Minister of Denmark, however, insisting that the island wants no part of the United States. Until today, a Greenlandic member of Danish Parliament saying that Greenland will never be for sale. So let's get more insight now as we look at the story. Mikkel Runge Olesen, a senior researcher at the Danish Institute for International Studies, joins us this evening. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, before we even get into the nitty-gritties and the responses here, let's speak about why Greenland. What makes it so important for national security?
Well, it actually primarily has to do with situational awareness. It is important for the US and for NATO as a whole to make sure that they can keep track on Russian planes flying over Greenland and Russian submarines traveling through Greenlandic waters. Those are the two main priorities, I would say. And the fact of the matter is that it should be possible to take care of these security concerns within the existing framework. The U.S. has a defense agreement with Denmark and Greenland that allows for the U.S. to operate in Greenland. It currently has one base in Greenland, but the document is open for other bases to be open should the U.S. have such need. So in that sense, I think this whole year that Donald Trump has been trying to acquire Greenland has really been a source of wonder for Denmark and Greenland as to why the U.S. really thinks it cannot achieve its security interests through dialogue with Denmark and Greenland, as has been the practice for more than 75 years.
And when you look at this, because a short while ago we had the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, saying that next week he will be meeting with Denmark with regards to this matter. How tense is that meeting likely to be?
Oh, it's likely to be very tense. Of course, the challenge with the U.S. administration is that it is often sending mixed messages, and Marco Rubio would be a representative of the more the more cautious, the more classical part of U.S. diplomacy. So I'm sure that during the meeting with him, he will likely stress that military action is not forthcoming. The problem, of course, is that even though U.S. diplomats time and again have been out and saying, well, there will be no military steps taken towards Greenland, that message rings hollow when it is contradicted by the White House. When the White House comes out and says something completely different, right? When the White House comes out, either Trump or one of his closest advisors come out and says, well, we won't take military means off the table. So that kind of mixed messages really makes it difficult to navigate the relations with the U.S. for Denmark and Greenland.
And we've seen the statements by leaders right on television screens and all of that, and some of the players here who've been speaking about this. But I wonder, how are the ordinary citizens processing all of this, particularly in Denmark, where you are?
Well, in Denmark, it bears. I should probably mention that of all the European NATO allies, Denmark would traditionally rank as one of the most pro-US European NATO members. But now we've had this crisis with the US over Greenland for more than a year, and that has really shaken the Danes and it's really brought up these existential questions as to whether have we trusted the US too much. Can we really count on the U.S. And all those things? So I think it has really shaken the Danes, and it has certainly made sure that I don't think that Denmark is the most pro-U.S. country in Europe anymore.
And you look at the developments here, there are questions that continue to arise, like we've seen in Venezuela at the weekend, because he says, and that is the U.S. president, that, Greenland is so strategic. Others are raising a concern to say it's not only about it being strategic, but it's about its minerals once again.
Well, I tend to not give too much credence for the mineral argument. It's true that Greenland has an abundance of rare earth minerals, but it bears mention that when you talk about resource extraction in the Arctic, it's not just a matter of how much is there. It's also a matter of whether there is a business case to extract it. It's a harsh climate, not a lot of infrastructure, vast distances. So a lot of those rare earth minerals in Greenland may never become viable in terms of extraction. And also, it bears notice that the Greenlandic authorities have been very clear that Greenland is not for sale, but open for business, and has tried to invite U.S. companies in for many years. But the fact of the matter is, they haven't gotten very much out of it, because for most American businesses, the business case just hasn't been there. They haven't been interested in going in and trying to develop any of those deposits.
When you look at the statement right by the Nordic countries, especially given what has happened here, there are some who are saying that this is a statement that could be tough, but is it really going to land as they are hoping it should?
Well, I think actually the statement has landed quite well. I think this is one of the most sort of firm messages we've seen so far. Of course, it's not gonna single-handedly keep Greenland and Denmark safe or anything like that, but it can contribute to that. I think very much the Danish and the Greenlandic strategy right now, and indeed the European strategy as a whole, would be to try to make any US attempt to invade Greenland or do something similar as politically expensive as possible, because everyone knows that neither Denmark nor Greenland nor Europe, for that matter, can repulse a U.S. invasion of Greenland should that happen. But they can make it very politically costly for the U.S. to pursue such a course.
Interesting insights. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Appreciate your time. Mikkel Runge Olesen, a senior researcher at the Danish Institute for International Studies, speaking to us about some of the developments there around Greenland. And if we can, let's bring you a little history on Greenland, right, as we look at it and its positioning. This is, as the U.S. president is calling it, strategic. It's the world's largest island, home to just over 56,000 people, and is rich in minerals and Inuit majority from the 1200s. And you're looking at 1721 there, for example. It was occupied by Denmark and later declared a Danish colony in the 1850s. The colony status was then abolished, and Greenland is then seizing and in fact gaining Danish citizenship there. Then the US entered the fray in around 1941, and this we saw, of course, it was during the World War II. And certainly as we continue then to monitor developments here, you've got some of those who are saying, will the tough statements land with a U.S. president who is also on Truth Social going on, speaking about how he himself is going to ensure that he makes America great again? How far does this go and where does it end? So a lot of conversation tonight about exactly how this is likely to pan out. And speaking of U.S. President Donald Trump, he says that interim authorities in Venezuela would be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States. Posting on Truth Social, Trump saying that the oil would be sold at its market price.